Michael Palin once said, "Once the travel bug bites, there is no known antidote, and I know that I shall be happily infected until the end of my life." My guest today, Autumn Carolynn, embodies this sentiment perfectly. Her love for travel inspired her to capture her adventures in her book, Traveling in Wonder. Get ready for an episode filled with captivating stories, unforgettable moments, and a special tale set beneath the Eiffel Tower with the ever-inspiring Autumn Carolynn. Welcome to Journey with Jake. This is a podcast about adventure and how through our adventures we can overcome the challenges of life that come our way. While I expect you will learn some things about different adventures, this show will entertain you. Each episode will feature a different guest or guests as they share experiences and stories from the different adventures they have been on. Not only will you be entertained, but you will also hear the failures and trials each guest faces and what they have done or are doing to overcome the hardships that come their way. My goal is to take each of us on a journey through the experiences of my guests with the hope that you'll be entertained and inspired to overcome your day-to-day challenges. After all, it's not all about the destination as it is about the journey. And welcome back to another episode of Journey with Jake. I'm your host, Jake Bushman, and I'm so glad you're here. Today's episode is an absolute treat. I had the best time chatting with Autumn Carolynn. We explored her incredible experiences as a student in England, her adventures as a flight attendant, and the many stories she's gathered during her travels around the world. Before we dive in, I have a few quick housekeeping items. First, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Journey with Jake Podcast. I love sharing clips from the show, announcements, and a peek into my personal life there. Also, Journey with Jake is now on YouTube. Head over to Journey with Jake podcast channel, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to like the episodes you enjoy. A quick shout out to the Podmatch Podcast Network. It's one of the largest networks out there with an incredible lineup of podcasts. If you're looking for more great shows to listen to, check out podmatch.com/network. This podcast has been going strong for over 3 years now with more than 140 episodes. And honestly, it's all thanks to you, my amazing listeners. Your subscriptions, reviews, and support mean the world to me, and I can't thank you enough for helping this journey continue to grow. One last exciting announcement. In just a few weeks, even just a few days at this point, on February 18th, Sacred Spaces Volume 3, Subtle Shifts for Mind, Body, and Home Transformation will be released on Amazon. I'm thrilled to have contributed to this incredible project, and you can find my story in Chapter 8. It's a great way to learn more about how Journey with Jake came to life, so mark your calendars and grab your copy on February 18th. Now, back to today's episode. Autumn Carolynn is an extraordinary storyteller, so much so that she wrote a book called Traveling in Wonder, filled with her adventures and even a few misadventures. If you enjoy this episode, I'd recommend checking out episode 75 with Sarah Iannacone, where we explore cultural adventures from around the world. All right, let's dive in. Here's my wonderful conversation with Autumn. All right, I'm excited. Tonight I have Autumn Carolynn on the call with me today. Autumn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be here.
Yeah, this is fun. I've looked you up a little bit, see what you've done. Again, another traveler. I speak to a lot of travelers because it's adventurous, and Journey with Jake's all about adventure and travel. I can't think of any better way to find adventure than to travel, in my opinion. So I think this is going to be fun. Before we dive into some of your adventures and who you are, and I know you have a book out and things like that, tell me a little bit about Autumn, kind of your background, where you're from, that sort of thing.
So I am from the suburbs of Chicago, and I currently live in Minnesota. So on my day-to-day life, I do travel photography, and I sell my work at art shows, at art exhibitions, and like around the Midwest currently.
Very good. Okay, so you're a Midwest person, so to speak. Minnesota. That's one state I've never been to, is Minnesota. So
really,
I have not been to Minnesota.
Go.
Yeah, got to check it out.
It's really nice. Yeah, it's like, well, I've been told that it is like Norway and Finland and Sweden. Well, I mean, I've been there too, so actually I would know. Sorry. I'm like, I've been told that this place is like those places. But yes, it is like it, and it's really fun.
Awesome. All right. You had a goal. You had a goal that you wanted to visit 30 countries by the time you were 30.
Yes.
So a couple questions. First question, did you accomplish the goal?
I did. I
Very
did.
good. And tell me, how did that come about? Were you a teenager? Maybe were you a kid? When did you say in your mind, like, I want to travel to 30 different countries by the time I'm.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. So originally, when I had this idea that I wanted to travel when I was little, and I always knew that I wanted to go someplace. However, 30 and 30, honestly, I didn't realize that it was something that I wanted to do until I was a flight attendant, because I was thinking, you know what? I've got all these things that I like, these countries that I've been to previously. And if I've been to them, why don't I just try and go for 30 under 30? So it was when I was a flight attendant when I started to actually realize it.
That's when you realized, okay, I can do the 30
Yeah.
under 30
Yeah.
when you're a flight attendant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want to know a little bit more about who you are. As far as school, college, things like, did you go to college?
I did. Yep. Mm-hmm.
What did you study in college?
I was an English literature major, and I had a specialization in creative writing.
Perfect. Okay. And you're an author. So that kind of seems like that fits. So that's pretty good. Okay. So you did that for college. Where did the flight attendant thing come about? Was that like right after college? How did that happen?
Yes. So my senior year of college, I studied abroad in Canterbury, England, and that's where I got the creative writing specialization. And every weekend I'd fly to a different country, and I had this goal to do 13 countries in 13 weeks. So I'd fly to the new country, sleep over in the airport on Thursday night, and then fly out Friday morning, stay in the new country from Friday to Monday. Then I would fly back to England Monday evening, just in time for me to get to my classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then I did it. I was able to complete the 30 or the 13 and 13. And when I came back to the US, like graduated probably like a week later, and I was like, I want to keep on doing this, right? So I was looking into different programs. So when you graduate from a college, there are different programs that you can apply to where you can live in different places around the world, and it can be hosted by these programs, and you have to like have a certain amount of money. So at this time it was like $5,000. And I was thinking, okay, I'm going to move to Australia. When I had this idea of going there, I had to save up the 5,000. And I spent like all these months saving up for it. Before I go to Australia, I have this gut feeling that I shouldn't go. I'm listening to it and I decide to I decide to let the one-way ticket go through. And I just kind of went with my gut. 10 days later from the flight that was supposed to go for me to go to Australia, I got the interview call for me to be a flight attendant. I honestly don't even remember applying. I applied to so many places. I was just like, I just need to get out of the Midwest right now because I miss traveling so much. And then 1 year from the day that that one-way flight to Australia was going, I was able to go to Australia for $120 round trip. I went there for like 2.5 weeks. It was just incredible.
That is a cool story. That's awesome how that all came about. Kind of have, I don't think I should make this happen. And then next thing you know, you get the job as a flight attendant and you're off and running. All right, I want to go back to England for a little bit because first of all, it's cool that you got to go study abroad for a year and part of your English and creative writing, that sort of thing. Okay, you packed a lot in. Again, you're all about numbers too. Let's do 30 under 30. Let's do 13 and 13. Friday, okay, so Thursday night you kind of slept in the airport so you could take an early flight? Is that how that worked?
That is correct. So I got to know the security guards really well.
Okay, why didn't you just go Friday morning? What was the point of the Thursday night thing?
It was because I wanted to. Okay, so my class got off Thursday night, or my class got off like midway on Thursday. And in my head, I was like, if I can take the train from Canterbury to London and then be able to catch the first flight out, it's just going to be so much easier for me to sleep over on the floor of this airport and then be able to fly out early in the morning. So that way I'm not having to worry about catching the train early in the morning. It's like I'm already there. I'm on the floor. If anything happens, I'm like right there. So that was really the big decision.
That makes more sense. Okay. That makes total sense now. Because at first I'm thinking, why would you go the night before just to sleep in an airport? But that makes sense. You got to take the train. And how far was Canterbury from London?
I think it was like 2.5 hours,
Oh,
maybe
yeah,
two
yeah. Then
hours
that,
or an
yeah.
hour and a half.
Then you're just being logical. You're making perfect sense by going the night before. Okay, so you do that, then you'd hop the first plane. When you were there in the different countries, and I'm guessing you said 13 different countries in Europe. When you're there in Europe, hitting those different countries, where were you staying? Were you staying in hostels? What were you doing? Okay.
Well, I stayed in hostels, but I also stayed in McDonald's bathrooms sometimes if I could not find a place to stay. I also stayed in a casino in the bathroom in in Newcastle, England, because I got the train times mixed up, and we were stranded at like 1:30 or 2 in the morning, and I found this casino, and I was like, I've never been to a casino before, but I do know that they are 24 hours. So I'm going to go into the bathroom, and I slept, and it was just great. It was every 55 minutes. They had these cleaning ladies come through, and I could time it. So I had a timer on my phone that I think it was every like 54 minutes right before they would come in. And I would be, washing my hands, pretending like I'm actually using the bathroom. And then I would set my timer again for another 54 minutes until they came back in.
That's unbelievable. I mean, it's funny. And
Yeah.
that's part of the adventure of
Yes.
travel. I mean, you're staying in a bathroom at a casino, at a
Yes.
McDonald's.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just it. Okay. How did you get that timing down? I mean, how long did it take you to get that timing down with the 55 minutes?
So when I walked in, they had this chart on the side of the bathroom. Like, you know how when you go into some bathrooms on the back of the door, it's like maintenance was at this time. But what they had at this casino was they had like this countdown. And at first I was like, what is this countdown for? But then I realized that it was because of like every 55 minutes, it was because that they were going to have cleaning crew going through it. And I was like, well, this is very efficient because I can just sleep here and then shut the door in the stalls so that way they don't know what I'm doing. And I just slept and then would have my alarm go off.
Wow. Okay. You are very resourceful. I think that's part of traveling. You got to be very resourceful. And so you
Thank
saw
you.
wow, I don't think I've had a story quite like this on the show yet. So this is fun. So this is great. Any particular memory or experience with your Europe travels that you remember specifically in a particular place or anything like that you want to share?
That I want to share. These are very good questions. I don't normally get asked questions like these. So it really makes me kind of think because, you really have to figure out what you want to share. Okay, well, I have a story. Wait, hold on.
Perfect.
What's your audience like? Is this
Keep it,
am I allowed to talk about Amsterdam? Is what I'm trying to say.
and drugs or what? Is that what you're
Well,
getting at?
yeah, kind of.
Red light district? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Let's just roll with it and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
It's a pretty clean podcast for the most part.
Okay.
I don't
I'm
have
sorry
like,
if I
kids
just
listening to it,
destroyed
but
this podcast.
no. This is going to be great. All right.
Reputation.
This is going to be good.
Okay, so I have this one story. I don't tell it very often, but it is in my book. One of the main places that I went to when I was on my own was Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And I was really kind of nervous because, I'm this single girl. I have not really that well versed with Amsterdam. And I was staying in this Christian hostel in the red light district. Okay. So I was kind of nervous just in general for it. I go to this hostel. I'm meeting new people, but I still want to go and kind of do my own thing. And there's this I Am Amsterdam where you can go and take pictures with the lettering in Amsterdam. It's kind of like the main tourist attraction. So I'm taking these pictures and there are these three guys and I like accidentally walk into their shot and they're like, oh, that's okay. We'll just caption it #beautiful, which was really funny at the time when hashtags were really popular, anyway, because this is like 10 plus years ago. So these three guys were from the US. Two of them were in the military and the other two were just their friends. Together, we then went to the Heineken Museum. We went all throughout Amsterdam. And then I went to a coffee shop And, I did not really quite know what I knew about it. I didn't really know that much at the time, but I took this space cake. Okay. And when I'm taking this space cake, it says, that you're only supposed to have a certain amount to eat, but I was really hungry. And so I ate the amount, but then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. I really want another one. So then I ate this other one and it just was not a good thing. Fast forward to I'm at a bar with these guys that I had just met hours before earlier, and there is this TV, and the TV at the bottom has this banner that's going across it, right? And when I'm looking at the banner in my headspace at the time, I'm from the Midwest. The banner is going around in my head. I'm like, oh my God, there's a tornado warning. And this is the Weather Channel, and the tornado warning is coming through, and I have to warn all these people. So I start telling all these people in this bar, everyone, we have to prepare because there's this tornado that's coming and it's going to come to Amsterdam, and I see it right there that's on the TV. And one of the guys just like shook me and was like, that is the bar specials. They have it. It's the bar drinks and they're just going around. It wasn't even a tornado warning, but in my, I'm used to that.
The
Being
space
from the
cake.
Midwest. Yeah, the space cake. Exactly. So that's one of my stories. I can't believe I said that. But anyway,
Well,
that's.
Here's the funny part again. Again, these stories, these adventures that we have when we travel, it's just, it's incredible. And you look back and you're like, oh my goodness. First of all, okay, you're a young solo female traveler, essentially, in the red light district. And there's three guys that you just don't, it could have went so many different ways. It could have really gone some different ways. You ended up at the place that you got some space cakes. Didn't realize what space cakes were. I still don't want to really. We probably shouldn't really dive into what exactly it was, but we can everybody listening could kind of assume.
Yes.
What it was, which made your mental space not quite where it needed to be. You saw the banner going across with the bar specials, thinking, "Oh man, this is this is what happens when I'm in the Midwest and a tornado is coming." So that's a great story. I love that. The things you learn, the things you realize, and again, things could have went differently. I'm glad it was that, and you can look back and laugh. Now you said it. As you said, it's in your book. Tell me about the book, what the name of the book is, and why you decided to put your memories and some tips and things in this book.
Yes. So the book is all about the goal to do 30 countries in 30 years. So each chapter is about a different country. And it was something that I've always wanted to do. Being a English literature major, I just had this knack that I always wanted to be an author someday. When the pandemic hit in 2020, I was previously a travel design manager, and everyone there was lots of layoffs and everything. So I didn't have my job at the time.
Can I ask a question? Can I jump in here and ask?
Yeah.
What is a travel design manager? What does that mean?
Yes, it is really fun, but it's a lot of hard work and very stressful. Travel design manager is basically like if you have corporations that are trying to hit a sales quota, basically what your job would be is that you create trips as incentives for those corporations. So if there is someone who is interested, or if there's someone who basically beats their quota or does really good in the company will say, congratulations, you won a trip to wherever I kind of put them in. So I would do research on places to go, excursions to use, where to stay. I'd put it all into a PowerPoint presentation. It gets presented, and then the person or the company who agrees with it will say, yes, we want to do this. And then these amount of people are going to be going on this trip and this trip. And then we book it for the company.
Fun. Okay. So like incentive type travel, that's kind of what you designed that for them though and created it. Awesome. Very cool. So, but you said 2020 happened. So that wasn't available obviously with COVID.
Yeah. So I found myself without a job, and I had all this extra time. And I was thinking, no one has ever seen my photos before, and no one has ever heard these stories. I just have these journals upon journals of entries of all these weird random things that have happened. And then I decided to start writing them and cataloging them into a Word document. And now, 4 years later, that Word document turned into an actual physical book, which is kind of cool because it's like, this is all the stuff that happened through all these crazy stories, with meeting people in Amsterdam and then them walking me home to my hostel and making sure I'm safe and just stuff that's like heartwarming, but also kind of scary at the same time. And it's kind of like a coming of age book, if you will.
That's awesome. Traveling in Wonder, was that the name?
Yes, Traveling in Wonder, a travel photographer's tales of wanderlust.
Wanderlust. I love it. Very cool. I read a little excerpt from it because you had a little expert on one of your websites or whatever, and I got to ask you about this because you were kissing somebody under the Eiffel Tower. First of all, it just sounded. I mean, and you write very well, by the way. I was like wanting to know, like, and I guess I have to read the book to know really kind of what came of that, but. Yeah, just kind of tell me a little bit about that experience.
Yes,
how did that?
So that was a French Canadian who spoke French. I met him at a hostel, and it was midnight, and I had just met him. They had like these huge, these bottles of wine because wine is cheaper than water there in Paris, and so we had this picnic that was looking up at the Eiffel Tower. And we had been kind of like, talking all night. And this isn't a big group of people. And we get underneath the Eiffel Tower and he says, like in his French accent, and he's like, well, we had missed the lift to go up at midnight. We had like barely missed it by a few minutes. And then when we were under it, he was like, I had plans to kiss you at the top of the Eiffel Tower at midnight, but unfortunately that didn't work out. So may I kiss you underneath it? And in my head, I'm like, my gosh, yes, like this is amazing. It's like a fairy tale. And so I was like, yes, you can. And so then he like swoops me, dips me down, does that whole thing. And my heart's like, I got all these butterflies in me. And I'm like, dang, girl, like I can't believe this is just happening. It was like the most amazing thing. And then we got back to the hostel and I was like, I have this like kind of weird philosophy and I talk about it in the book too, where I kind of have this realization that some things I really like as just a memory in my mind. And I didn't want to continue with it because I didn't want to spoil that precious memory. So when he asked for, contact info before I went back into my dorm room, I just said, let's just let this be a memory in time. So it's really neat because in my head, I'm thinking, this is like what we both remember now of that same night and that same time. Because there's not something where, I'm going on Instagram and saying like, I mean, I'm married now to a totally different person, but spoiler alert. But it's like, I'm not like on, it's just different. It's like, it stays there as it is. And I think there's like a beauty in that.
It's a great way to describe it. And like I said, again, you wrote it very well where I was like kind of on the edge of my seat, like, ooh, what's going to happen? And thanks for the spoiler. So now I
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You're married, and you're not married to the Canadian French guy.
No, I'm not.
Here's the interesting part too, and you don't have you don't know him, right? You don't have his contact information, nothing.
Mm-mm.
But he's in your book though. Like he is now permanently part of who you are and who you were as a great memory, being dipped. He's speaking to you with that accent.
I know. I was like, dang. This is pretty nice being in Paris and like for it to be like very, I don't know. It was very romantic.
That's awesome. That's very cool. I'm guessing getting to the 30, because you did the 13 in Europe. And then I'm guessing being a flight attendant helped with that.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about being a flight attendant because that to me has to be, it's got to be, okay, I'm trying to word this because I fly a lot as a passenger. That's a tough job. Like, it just seems like a tough job. The people you're dealing with.
Yes.
Tell me about just give me a little bit of some of your experiences as a flight attendant, maybe, but some of the positives too. I mean, I don't want to hear about the crazy people, but if you got a crazy story, I don't mind hearing that either.
Believe me, I have lots of crazy stories. That's how I was able to write this thing.
Yeah.
Let me just stretch to, get myself prepped for this. Being a flight attendant was one of the most incredible things that I've ever had the opportunity of being. It was something that I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I do miss it a lot, honestly. Their hardest thing, though, the hardest thing was going through training. So we had training that was 6 days a week, 12 days or 12 hours in a day. I would get started at I would get started at like 4:30, 5 o'clock. And then I would go throughout my day. Every week you have to pass with over a 90% on these tests. If you didn't pass with the 90%, you would be sent home. So one of the people that was in my test, in my class, she had a 89.5% and they sent her home. And
Wow.
it was so incredibly hard. When people go onto a airplane, I feel like, and I didn't really realize this until I became one, but you don't realize how much flight attendants know and are having to deal with, because in this training, you are fighting fires in the cabin. You are learning CPR. You're learning what to do in case of a medical emergency, in case of a water emergency. We had to pretend like there was a water emergency. So we are jumping into pools off of an airplane, going through the emergency exit slide, which is really fun. And then learning all these different tactics of what to do. They even have things in the training that's, if you land on a desert island, what do you do? How do you handle that? We have all these equipment that we use that not a lot of people know. So the training was extremely difficult, but being able to come out of it was entirely worth it, because the people that I worked with, it's always a different amount of flight attendants at the same time. So for me, I never flew with the same flight attendant twice. So we'd be together for like 3 to 4 days and we would share our whole life story. And we, at the end of it, you're like, oh my gosh, I love this person. Like, I just am so happy to meet them. But then at the end of it, you don't see them. So it's honestly also very lonely, because you're kind of going from place to place and seeing all these different things. But at the same time, you're waking up in a random hotel room and you're like, I don't even know if am I in Boston or Detroit, or like, am I in San Francisco? I have no clue where I am when I wake up. So yeah, it is worth it. But that's kind of like the hardest part of becoming a flight attendant.
Well, yeah, and your time, like you said, your time's all goofy. You're like, where am I? What day is it? What time is it?
Yes.
You're going from different time zones and yeah, just all over the place. All right, I got to hear at least a story or two of any fun things that happened to you while you're a flight attendant.
Yes. Okay. I was a flight leader. So that means that you are basically in charge of the head cabin. And there's like half and half. So the coolest thing that has ever happened was that I met the band Blink-182. They
Very
gave
cool.
me tickets to go to their concert. I got pictures with Mark Hoppus. I met the band manager, which I still have the number of, which is really funny. And, I was able to talk to them and say, I started playing guitar when I was 13. You guys were like the band that, changed me when you're going through that teenage angst and you're like, oh, I just screw everything. And it was like this amazing like circle that came together when I met them. It was incredible. So that was the coolest thing that's ever happened.
That's awesome.
Thank you. The scariest thing that has ever happened. Well, no. Okay. Sorry. I don't know if legally I'm allowed to say this. Well, but I'm not saying the airline, so it doesn't really matter.
I'm not asking you the other airliner.
The scariest experience that I ever had was that we were landing in Chicago and I was in the middle seat. We were like I think it was like a 777 or something like that. It was like a really big aircraft and I was in the middle of the cabin. We had just landed. We were taxiing. We got to the gate. And I'm sitting there, because we're in our jump seats, and I see this passenger who's like alerting his call light for a flight attendant. So I come out of my seat and I'm like, can I help you or do you need help? And he looks at me and he's like quiet and he like points out the window and he's like, is that supposed to be doing that? And I look out the window and there's a cart of jet engine fuel that is exploding next to a engine that is still going like this. So you have this fuel tank that is spilling everywhere. Sorry, I shouldn't say exploding. It wasn't exploding. You have this fuel tank that is spilling out everywhere right next to this jet engine that is still going. And there's sparks coming out of the jet engine right next to this whole thing of gas. And so I'm like, thank you so much. I'm not going to be, panic right now, but I go back, I call the captain, and the captain, you're not supposed to really call the captain unless it's an emergency, especially when they're doing going through and taxiing. So what happened was that the people down below were instructing them to go into the gate for the bridge, but they didn't realize that there was this fuel tank that was just sitting there. And that's why the engine busted into the fuel tank and then the fuel started going through. I did not include this in my book because I was really afraid that something would happen and I didn't want to risk that. But I'm telling it today, so hopefully I don't get in trouble. Anyway, so
So you have no idea who you worked for or what it was or anything.
Yeah,
so,
you don't know at all. So then I'm going through and all this jet engine fuel is going out. I call the captain. The captain says, get as many people off this plane as you can in a very calm manner. Don't alert anything. And he said, and then when you are done, grab your shit and run up the jet bridge. So that's exactly what we did. So as this thing is going off, I'm like, thank you so much for flying with us. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope you had a great day, or I hope you had a good flight. And people are just going through, and there are some people, they had no clue, except for that group that, that was right there that had heard what he was saying and had seen it too. And so they're going through and people are just straggling. And then as soon as the last person comes, all of the other flight attendants and I are like, grab your shit. And then we just ran up this jet bridge. And it was really, it was scary because it's like, you have no clue what could happen at that moment. But you just have to play it cool. You're like, yep, everything is fine. And I'm just going to make sure you guys are all safe and out of there because if something happens, we're screwed.
Well, and that's why I love people like you who are a flight attendant, staying calm. Yeah. Even if in your mind you're going a little crazy. I like how you said too that you're not really supposed to call the captain unless it's an emergency. I would definitely say that was an emergency. That definitely qualifies.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So being a flight attendant, again, it helps you get to your 30 countries. Looking back at the 30 that you went to before you were 30 by 30, any particular country you're like, man, that was like my absolute favorite, or any that you're like, maybe kind of the opposite end.
So the number one that I have that is my absolute favorite is Norway. I've been back 3 times. It's just the most incredible place. The people there are super friendly. The fjords are absolutely beautiful. And my tip is that if you're planning on going to Norway, to go during October. That's like my favorite time to travel just in general, but just the leaves are absolutely incredible and just so beautiful. So that's my favorite. I went to Oslo the first time, Bergen the second, and then Tromsø the third. And then my place that I kind of had like a scary encounter was in Budapest in Hungary.
Okay. Any you want to hint at what that was, or you leave me hanging here?
I'll just leave it at the cliffhanger and be like, hey, you need to read my book in order to
read the book.
No, so it was another one of those things where I was traveling by myself and I was going to the hostel. I had on my luggage with me and I was rolling it in a roller bag, which normally I wouldn't be traveling with a roller bag. I always had a backpack with me, but for this one I did. And as I'm like walking through, I'm getting lost. And I didn't have like Google Maps on my phone. I barely had any kind of cell service unless I found a Wi-Fi at McDonald's or at Starbucks. So I basically just had a physical map that was from the train station that I got dropped off at. And then I was trying to make my way towards the hostel. I get lost and I'm in this place that I don't really know where I am at all. It's raining and it's getting dark. And then all of a sudden I see this like large group of men who were kind of watching me, right? So I'm thinking in my head, like, shit, man, I really hope I'm going to be okay because I don't even have cell service. I don't even know what I would do. The group splits into 2. Half of the group is behind me and the other half goes across the side and then goes in front of me. So I'm in the middle between these 2 guys, and the group that's in front of me, or the group of men, the group that's in front of me starts to slow down while the group that's behind me starts to speed up. So I'm like right in the middle. And I just remember praying. I was like, dear God, please let there be a way for me to get out of this because I'm in a foreign country and I just felt so stupid for not knowing where I was. And there was this lone butcher shop that was open. Now, your girl's a vegetarian, right? So I do not eat meat, but I went into this butcher shop and there was this little Hungarian woman who had like a meat cleaver and she's in there with, the chunks of meat hanging down. And I'm trying to explain to her in English, which she doesn't speak English. And I'm trying to say, I'm lost. There's this group of men. Like I was so flustered and very scared. And I just kept on pointing to the map. Like, I don't know where I am. And at the same time, I'm watching outside the door because I'm thinking, how long do I need to stay in this place? And bless this Hungarian woman, whoever she is, because with my English and her Hungarian, she was able to kind of like let me know where I was. I was able to show her the hostel that I needed to be at. She was able to point to where the hostel was on the map that I had. And I spent like 20 minutes in there, just kind of like trying to take cover because I'm thinking, okay, if it's 20 minutes, maybe they think that like I'm not in here anymore. I don't know. I was just trying to like, stall because I didn't want to go out there again. And I kept on checking to make sure that they were gone. But yeah, so that's kind of what ended up happening. It was very scary. After the 20 minutes, they did leave. But for that first like few minutes when I walk in and she's trying to ask me what kind of meat I want. And I keep trying to say, I don't want any meat. I'm not here for any meat. I'm just here because I'm lost. It was one of those things where I look back and I'm like, I kind of wish that I could like watch that in real time to see how that interaction went because she probably had no clue what was going on.
Wow. Saved by the grace of this butcher shop, which you're a vegetarian, which is so ironic. And again, looking back, these are great stories, great memories. I'm sure you learned a few things from that experience and, life's lessons, right? Sometimes that's the way it works, for sure.
For sure.
I want to go back to Norway for a minute because you said you love Norway so much.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about Norway? What is it that, you said it's beautiful. The fjords are beautiful. What does it do to you? Like, what does it do to your soul, I guess?
Yes. The very first time I went, it was something that I honestly have a hard time putting into words. And I try to describe it in the chapter of the first chapter that I have written on there. But it was just like imagining this place that you feel like you've always wanted to meet your whole life. And then when you're actually there, you can't believe that it's real. And it just feels like everything in you is just like mesmerized by the beauty. And it's so weird because it gives me like goosebumps right now, but it's just something that when you're there, I honestly, when like on the second or third day, I started going into shops trying to figure out if they were hiring for me being after I was done with graduating because I was like, I want to move here, I want to live here, and I want to see if I can get a job here. Obviously, that did not work out because, that's very hard to do, especially with, getting visas and things like that. And Norway is very tough unless you're in school. However, so when I was there, it was the plane ride from Oslo to Canterbury or London, I guess. And as I'm going, I just started crying in the seat. And I was in a window seat. And I just remember being like, am I ever going to be able to come back here again? Because I've never met a place as beautiful as this. And it was really cute in a weird way because it was raining too. So it was like, it felt like Norway was crying with me in a way because I'm like, oh my gosh, it was just amazing. But then I was able to go back when I became a flight attendant and I went to Bergen for a week. And it was just, again, the same exact feeling. It was in October and it was just incredible. But I guess the cherry on top, I guess you can say, is that when I was in Tromsø, it was in February and we went there on our honeymoon. And again, this has something to do with being a vegetarian because apparently a lot of my stories have to all come together in a weird way. But we're there for the first night and I book us a Northern Lights chase. We're going around through all these fjords, and it's a Northern Lights chase that's specifically for photographers, was this tour that I had booked us. So everyone there is a photographer. They all have their tripods set up, and I've got mine, and I'm, going through. But everybody was roasting sausages over this fire, right? And I'm a vegetarian, so I'm not eating the sausages, but, my husband's over there roasting them, and everyone else is. And throughout this entire night, it was just cloudy. It was just like you cannot see anything. There was no northern lights to see. But then there's this amazing, beautiful, bright green northern lights aurora that just comes straight above. And I'm looking there and I'm on my camera and I'm like, holy shit, man. Like I'm taking all these pictures and I'm like, I cannot believe I just got it. So I was like one of the only ones to get a picture from that night because everyone else was at the fire. And looking back on it, I'm like, man, thank you so much. This is great. Like I should be, I'm really happy that being a vegetarian has like worked out in my favor for a lot of different things. But the next day I went to this fjord and it was early in the morning and there was this pack and a herd of wild reindeer. And I start running after this herd of wild reindeer because, I'm from the Midwest and I'm like, I've never seen reindeer before in my life that's not in a zoo. So I'm going to try and get pictures of it. But as I'm running, it's February and there's ice. So I slip on the ice. I bust my brand new camera and that was it. So that picture of the fjord and the picture of the northern lights are the two pictures that I have from my honeymoon that I was there for like over a week. And those are the only pictures I have. But I feel like that made me appreciate Norway just that much more because I wasn't behind a camera. I wasn't, being cast with trying to get the perfect shot. And it was something where I could like feed wild reindeer and, experience it sleeping in a yurt, with the Sami people in the middle of a snowstorm and not have to be worrying about, did I get the right shot? Or is this going to turn out? Or do I have enough battery for my camera? Or did I forget a memory card? All those other things.
I'm glad you shared that because I talk to a lot of like influencers and things, and I always ask about that. I'm like, how about just being in the moment? And that's a hard thing for a lot of them because a lot of them are like, oh, I got to capture this. I got to do this. You were kind of forced to do that. And I think that paid off for you. It sounds like your memory and your love for Norway just increased that much more.
Definitely.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. It was really, in the moment, it sucked. Like, I was like crying because, I bought this brand new camera for this entire honeymoon and I was looking forward to it. But then it just, honestly, it felt like it all happened for a reason. I know that sounds cliche, but it really did because I already had pictures of Norway for my gallery for, shots that I could take. And I did get a really great shot that's in Tromsø. So I do have that of the fjords. So it wasn't anything detrimental. Like I didn't need these pictures for my exhibition or something like that. It was just something that, it sucked in the moment. But now I look back on it and I'm like, wow, that's cool. I have just videos on my cell phone that, are not really like influencer type. It's just like the real raw stuff.
Yeah. Of you and your husband on your honeymoon. I think that's the other cool part. You have this love for Norway and you're able to share that with your husband, for your honeymoon. I think that's really cool too. That's awesome that you went to the place that you love and got to share that with him. How did he like it, the experience?
Yeah. Well, so he wanted to go to an all-inclusive in the Caribbean.
Of course he did.
And I was like, hey, man, let's do the opposite of that. And let's go to north of the Arctic Circle where it's in February when it's freezing. And so we did that instead. But now he's like, he's very thankful that we went because of the fact that it was a really nice experience and time. And then we ended up going to an all-inclusive when he turned 30 and it was my 30th country. So it was like the end of the circle altogether. And it was our first time ever doing an all-inclusive in any type of like tropical place. It was Costa Rica. So it did work out.
And did he like it? Did he enjoy it?
He did. Yeah, he did.
How'd you like it? How'd you like the all-inclusive thing?
Well, I'm the kind of person that I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. And then we're going to go and explore. And I want to go to this like adventure park and try all these fun things. And this was more of like we're going to be in a swim-up pool. And then I'm going to sit in the swim-up pool and I'm just going to sit here and enjoy what I'm doing in the moment and just kind of like be doing, eating. It was so different for me. I did enjoy it, but it was hard for me not to want to be go, go, go all the time. I mean, we ended up being go, go, go anyway, because it's just like,
Kind of who you
I'm
are
like,
anyway. So
yeah, I'm
I
like,
think you're bringing that to
sorry,
the
hon,
table
man.
regardless.
I tried for an afternoon going to this like bar, swim up bar thing, but he wasn't mad at all. He was on board with it too. And we kind of have, a part of us has similar travel styles. So it's easier that way rather than like only wanting to go to an all inclusive all the time, which I'm
For
really
sure.
thankful that we, aren't like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. What do you think as you move forward now? What are some of the challenges that you kind of face? Like, what are some of the difficulties with your photography business, with the
Mm.
travel? Just what are some of the challenges you think?
The challenges for me, honestly, are being able to have enough time in a day because I find myself really having a hard time with catching up on emails and answering people and scheduling stuff because there's just so much that I'm doing at a single time because I've got all these ideas in my head of like, yes, I want to do this and I'm going to work on my second book and it's going to be 40 under 40 and all these, ideas. But it's really hard when, you are trying to do what you can and do what you know. And then also you're on the budget that you have. So like, I sell my artwork on my website and I sell it, the art shows and the art exhibitions and things like that. But that also fuels all of the capabilities for me to be able to go on more trips or for me to be able to upgrade my gear or to afford more stock and inventory and things that are different to what I already sell. So it's really just a challenge with learning how to be like a small art business, but also be able to make it profitable too.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's definitely got to be the challenge. I can see that and kind of driving you. So, kind of on that same wavelength, then, what does the future hold for Autumn?
Boy, if I had a crystal ball, I could be able to tell you, but I don't. So I'll just take a guess. I feel like my future for autumn, I would hope, is that I continue to go to the 40 countries under 40. So right now I'm at 34 countries and I'm 33. So I'm just trying to keep that up, keep on writing to write my second book. And what I would really love is if there was a way for my exhibition that I do. So I do like 30 under 30, and I have this art exhibition that goes into different like museums around the Midwest. But I would love for that to be able to go global in a way, or for me to work with different art companies and galleries across the world. And then for me to go to different bookstores that are named in the actual places that I went to and be able to contact the hotels or the restaurants that I mentioned in there and the excursions and say, hey, man, like I talked about this and, my time that was there. And I would love to be able to, highlight you or work with you in a certain way and kind of work on that relationship or partnership.
Very cool. Love that. So before we go, I want you to tell everybody where they can find maybe your prints, your book. How can they reach out to you and follow you?
Yeah, yep. Thank you. So my book is on my website. Well, everything is basically on my website. So my website is autumncarolyn.com, and Carolyn has two N's with it. It's not one N. Quirky. And then on my Instagram, my Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky now, which is new. It is Autumn Carolyn Photography. I think on TikTok it's Autumn Carolyn Photograph, but you can find updates there. And then my book you can find on my website. And if you are interested, I would recommend purchasing it on the website because if you purchase it on Amazon, I only earn 28 cents per book, which is a new, I did not realize how little book people or authors make. But yeah, it's on Amazon and Walmart.com and Barnes and Noble and all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Very good. Yeah. So definitely check out your book. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I read that little excerpt about in Paris kissing some dude. So let's, get into some more of that. Final question. This is a question I like to ask everybody is, what does adventure mean to you?
Adventure means to me to step out of your comfort zone, to be comfortable with the unknown. And even if anxiety, which is like my thing, because I have anxiety, surprise, that it's something that makes you keep going and do things that you would normally be really anxious or nervous about. And it's also kind of like this drive to see things that you would normally never see in your day-to-day life. But I also think that adventure could be and is for people who do have severe anxiety and who do have, potential reasons for why they're not able to fly to different places. It could be as simple as exploring a new grocery store. If you're, wanting to have a new experience, going to a town that's next to you, but taking the train instead of driving, and just having your mind be open to, wow, I've never been here before. What am I smelling? What do I see? What do I taste and feel? And, have that experience in a completely different way than you normally would.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on Journey with Jake.
Thank you so much, Jake. This has been awesome. I am so excited for this, and I'm just really thankful.
A huge thank you to Autumn Carolynn for joining me on the show and sharing her incredible love of travel and adventure with all of us. If you'd like to connect with Autumn and get your own copy of her book, Traveling in Wonder, visit her website, autumncarolynn.com, and that's Carolyn with 2 N's. You can also follow her on Instagram at Autumn Carolynn Photography. I've already ordered my copy, and Autumn hinted she might sign it for me. She'd probably be happy to do the same for you. Thanks again, Autumn, for such a delightful and inspiring conversation. I also want to take a moment to thank you, my listeners, for tuning in each week. I often tell people I probably keep doing this show even if no one listened. But knowing that I have listeners in 67 countries in over 1,500 cities around the world truly humbles me. Your support, enthusiasm, and belief in Journey with Jake mean everything to me, and I'm incredibly grateful for each and every one of you. We've got more great content coming your way. On February 10th, you will hear from Fiorella Iriberi, an overlander who, along with her husband, transformed an old fire truck into their home and mode of transportation. It's a fascinating story you won't want to miss. As always, remember, it's not always about the destination, as it is about the journey. Take care, everybody.